Item 8D, which is 8D, which is the STLU, is actually being continued tonight. There's no staff brief because the actual ordinance will be brought to us 2 weeks from tonight. So if you have, some people have indicated they've come here tonight to want to speak to that, and when we get to that item, I will discuss whether you want to talk or not, whether you want to hold your remarks for another 2 weeks or not. It's your choice. And with that, would Commissioner Crandall please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please join the Commission and staff in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Mr. Petches, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Eggleston. Here. Commissioner Blackwell.
Here.
Commissioner Ruland.
Here.
Chair Brown.
Here.
Commissioner Crandall.
Here.
Commissioner Wu.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Okay, there are no special orders of business. We do have minutes to approve for our meeting of 24 February and 2 March. I do have one correction for the minutes from 24 February on page 4. Unanimous 6-0 vote recommended to City Council to revise the TOT license to require proof of insurance and add the words "from the insurance company" or the applicant's insurance company. Are there any other corrections at all?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
It would be minutes from Planning Commission meeting March 2nd. It'd be page 4.
Oh, we haven't approved more, 20, if there are no more corrections to...
Oh, I'm sorry.
24 February? Do I have a motion to approve?
I move we approve the minutes from the adjourned regular meeting of the City of San Clemente Planning Commission of February 24th, 2016.
Second.
Okay, move with the corrections as stated?
With corrections as stated.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, passes 7-0. And now we'll undertake to approve the minutes from the March 2nd meeting. And Commissioner Blackwell, you have some corrections, I guess.
Yes, page 4 of the March 2nd Planning Commission minutes, number 9. Number 9 states that suggested all residential zones should all be treated the same because residents living in residential zones are choosing to live in residential neighborhoods without commercial enterprises and so on. There was discussion of similar statement, the suggestion that all residential zones should be treated equally regardless of the density. And that was in the discussion.
So the words you want to put in there are...
They were both discussed, but this is more of a derivative of, but there was a separate statement that I myself made regarding the
okay.
equality in all,
Do you have that?
in all residential zones, regardless of density.
Maybe you want to indicate what text you'd like to replace and what you want to replace it with.
Okay. Well, the statement was a suggestion that all residential zones should be treated equally regardless of density.
In place of?
Well, it wouldn't be in place of because this was also a statement that was
inserted in, suggested all residential
Yep.
zones should be treated equally with the same density?
Yes.
Because residents living in the residential zones are choosing. Okay. Madam Secretary, do we have that? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
With that, any other corrections?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Commissioner Smith.
For the record, I thought it was clear that I objected to having breakfast and bed and breakfast and home sharing as short-term vacation rentals. I don't believe that they fit in that category, and I stated it, and I'd like to go on the record here that I still feel that way.
Okay, so you wanted just the fact that Commissioner Smith objected to the bed and breakfast. I thought, isn't that covered with whether it was pulled at 5, commented that bed and breakfast? You just wanted specifically your name saying you're on record that you opposed bed and breakfasts. Okay. I don't understand.
Breakfast and home sharing.
So exactly what do you want to put in the minutes?
That I disagree that bed and breakfast and home sharing are considered short-term vacation.
Okay, can we add that in one of the bullets, Madam Secretary? Okay with that, those corrections? Do I have a motion to approve with corrections then?
Just, I beg your pardon, as a point of order, are we, Jim, we changed the way we do our minutes a year or two ago. Are we, and what I've noticed is we tend not to put, so-and-so said, it was stated by one or more members of the Planning Commission. Is that how we should characterize Commissioner Smith's statements?
It's really up to your discretion when you're,
Okay.
reviewing
Yeah,
and
we have
approving the
been
minutes.
more
If you want to add a
journalistic in our
specific
comments
comment by an
because of
individual, you
legal
can.
input, but-
Or you can keep it general and just add it as an additional bullet point that,
Okay, either is fine with me, but I
Okay.
just wanted to make sure we weren't
I guess
messing something up.
Mr. Smith's happy with a general comment now. Okay. With that, can we get through the minutes?
I'll move we approve the minutes. I beg your pardon. I'll move we approve the minutes of March 2nd.
Do I have a second? Second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Fine. Passes with correction 7. Okay, oral communication. Members of the audience can address the commission on matters of public interest which pertain to the city but are not on our agenda tonight. If you wish to speak, please step forward to the microphone and state your name, city of residence, and make your presentation. Please limit your presentation to 3 minutes. Do we have any cards as far as general oral and written communication, Madam Secretary? Okay. We have nothing on the consent calendar. We'll move to item 8, and 8A is Avenue Nita Santa Ynez, conditional use permit 15394, the Rice residence, by Mr. Wright, and I believe that's to be continued.
Chairman Brown, staff is requesting this item be continued to the April 6, 2016 Planning Commission hearing.
So moved.
I have a move to continue this to the date stated. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Eggleston, and all in favor? By Blackwell, I'm sorry. Quickly, Rulon, Blackwell, all in favor? Aye. 8A passes, 7-0. Now, the corner of Presidio and Empalme, discretionary sign permit 16009, Broadmoor community sign. Mr. Nicholas.
Yes, good evening.
Mr. Sign member.
Yes, another sign. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Sean Nicholas, project planner. This is for a new monument sign for the Broadmoor community, located there at the corner of Calle Empalme and Avenida Presidio, within the Broadmoor residential area. You can see there to the right is a proposed site plan with landscaping there at the corner. I point out that the sign has been reviewed in terms of its location as well as for future improvements for sidewalks, that if there was ever any needs for improvements to sidewalks, there is sufficient room to accomplish those goals, as well as does not impact any kind of engineering standards associated with site distance and site triangles. The proposed sign is consistent with the existing sign in terms of square footage. It's just updating it with a new, rebuilding it, but updating the design and style with this new character with the stone and the accent with the gray concrete accent, and then the pin-mounted letters that are 11 inches high. No illumination is proposed. All the dimensions are within compliance with the municipal code and sign standards. With that, that concludes staff's presentation. Staff is prepared to address any of the Planning Commissioner's questions this evening.
You have any questions of staff, Commissioner Wu?
Yes. I communicated with Sean regarding the distance between this existing monument to the sidewalk. It appears the monument appears to be very close to the back of the sidewalk. And my concern, I had 2 concerns. The first one is that the monument is located within the clear view triangle of that intersection. Usually, when anything in that triangle, whether it's a hedge or monument, any structure, they should be kept at a very low height so they don't block drivers and pedestrians' view. Typically, those height limit, I think we had that discussion on the on the other roundabout design. And so this monument, after revision, is 48-inch tall at the maximum height. That appears to be a little tall for that view obstruction. I'm not sure about our engineering department standard, but typically they're about 3 feet. In fact, those hedges are pretty tall. They will block the driver's view. So that's my first concern. The second concern is, in case that the city wants to initiate and improve the sidewalk and build the sidewalk around that curb ramp, we run out of a dimension. So I would like to see this monument to be moved backwards so that there's enough distance in case the city wants to build a continuous sidewalk. A continuous sidewalk around the curb ramp will also be required when the homeowner of that corner lot made substantial change or rebuild a house, for example. In that case, they will be required to improve the sidewalk, including a sidewalk up and around the curb ramp. So in both scenarios, the dimension between the existing monument and the proposed same location does not allow that to happen.
Any other question? That's a question to staff then?
So my question is, well, it's basically my opinion on that. It's
If you'd like, I can address the issue for Commissioner Wu, because as he said, we did communicate
We're not in
this. So
discussion about that.
yeah.
That was a question to you, the staff and engineering.
And I'll just, and I believe I know, I understand his, Commissioner Wu's concerns, and we did have, engineering staff had gone out even before this had gone to Design Review Subcommittee, which it did. And again, at this request, I just asked Engineer Mr. Ponson to go out and take some additional measurements just to really verify, since it was brought up as another concern. And he did go out and not only took several measurements and also approached it in the different areas and calculations based on the plans. And again, he was very comfortable in terms of its location, in terms of not impacting the site distances or impacting anything, and being consistent, and it being consistent with all the requirements of site triangles coming into that intersection. Additionally, he did indicate to me that there is a continuous 4-foot wide sidewalk that does go through that area, and he felt that there was still sufficient space within the existing area as well as within the right-of-way, and based on where the sign's location was and any potential improvements that may need to be done at that intersection there, at that corner, that ADA ramp, there would be sufficient space without impacting the sign in any way. And so that's what the information I
So
did
engineering is
receive again from
comfortable with
engineering.
the sign layout?
Engineering is comfortable with the project moving forward as designed.
Okay. Are there any other questions of staff? Is there the applicant tonight like to make a comment?
My name is Jeff Smith. I'm with Smith Architects. I'm representing Broadmoor Homeowners Association. It's a simple design. The garden wall, the monument wall's been there for I don't know how many years, probably since the beginning of the development in the 70s. It's about a year ago, apparently a driver decided to leave the road and take out the sign. Broadmoor would just like to replace it in roughly the same position, roughly the same height, but just improving the style.
Considered putting boulders up to protect the sign for the future by any chance? I noticed they're not in your design.
Well, it's been there for, I don't know, 40 years maybe, and if that was the only hit it's taken, that's pretty good.
Okay.
Especially being near the high school and on a road that some people don't take so well.
Any other questions of the applicant? Mr. Smith?
I didn't actually look at this intersection, but I'm looking at the picture of the corner, and it looks like the curb cut is already there.
Yeah.
Yeah, as to whether it's compliant or not with current accessibility standards, I'm not sure. But Presidio is a very steep street, and with the number of swales that are there, accessibility is a challenge for just about anybody.
Well, I know it's not quite current because you don't have the Braille ADA type patch
Right.
installed yet. So
Right.
there's another iteration that they have to go to, and the city will get to it eventually, I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions of the applicant?
I do have one question for Sean.
Okay.
Sean, can you talk about the illumination a little more?
There is no illumination.
No illumination on this. And the location is roughly in the same location as the existing was?
Yes, sir.
Or,
I believe it's actually in the exact location.
so it's no further closer?
No, sir.
No closer to that, okay, thank you.
Okay. With that, we'll open any, let's see, we have the applicant, so is there any public comment on this? I'll open public comment. Any cards? Anybody wish to speak? I'll close the public comment and entertain discussion or motion. Everybody's lights came, starting with the left. Commissioner Smith?
I was going to move that we adopt the resolution if there's no other discussion, but I'll wait. There is?
I was going to do the same, but I was
Okay.
going to start with just a comment on how nice it looks. I think it's going to be a real enhancement to the
Okay,
neighborhood and
we'll
the
let
street.
Commissioner Smith kick it off here.
Okay. I'd like to
Commissioner
adopt,
Wu, you have some other discussion point, I'm sorry?
Yes. I would defer to our city engineering department about the safety issue regarding the clear view triangle. But I simply don't see the dimension there to accommodate the sidewalk to be around that curb ramp. The curb ramp is there, but that doesn't meet the standard. The standard is the sidewalk needs to be continuous and around that curb ramp. So it actually takes a larger piece of that corner. If you look at the current sidewalk is about 4 feet wide. If you have the curb ramp is about 4 feet wide, taking that sidewalk. If you have another 4 feet relatively flat, the crossfall is 2%. The curb ramp to the crossfall is certainly more than 2%. If you have another sidewalk behind the curb ramp, there's no dimension there to accommodate another 4 foot wide sidewalk there.
Is that a safety issue?
But it's, keep in mind that there's plenty of right-of-way here. This is, the radius is something that we wouldn't actually design to today with a complete streets design.
It's light for light.
So there's, according to the traffic engineer, there's plenty of room to accommodate the new standards if we were to implement that.
Okay. Mr. Smith?
okay. I would like to move that we adopt a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of San Clemente, California, approving discretionary sign permit 16-009, Broadmoor Monument Sign, a request to replace an existing residential monument sign located at the intersection of Avenida Presidio and Calle Empalme,
I have a motion.
and including the conditions of approval, DSP 16-009, Broadmoor Monument Sign.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second by Mr. Blackwell. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? Passes 6-1. Okay. And now we'll, item C, 1819 South El Camino Real, conditional use permit 15-108, Verizon at Little Inn. Mr. Jones, how are you tonight?
Chair
Doing great.
Brown?
Thank you,
Yeah.
Chair Brown.
I'm sorry. I must recuse myself due to the fact that I have a recent professional relationship with the applicant.
Okay.
I will also recuse myself because I own one property that was within 500 feet of the subject area.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And I will also leave the meeting at this moment.
Okay.
I leave the meeting
Okay.
at this moment.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, well, good evening, Commissioners. I'm Cliff Jones, the project planner for this application before you tonight. This is a cellular antenna installation.
Just a minute. Have you filled out recusal? Do they? Okay, he'll be returning the meeting. Sorry for the interruption.
Excellent. So this is a cellular antenna installation for Verizon located at the Little Inn Hotel. The site is 1819 South El Camino Real. And the project is a request for 2 tower extensions with domes and cupolas atop. Look, you can see in this existing slide the area with the arches, that's where the tower is being extended above. That area with the arches and everything above it is all new. and that is on both of the towers. And those tower extensions would house a good portion of the Verizon cellular equipment. Staff worked with the applicant extensively on the tower design to make sure we were getting the most believable, best improvement architecturally speaking. You can see with this design that it has recessed stucco arches with tile. There's a white cornice trim. There's a dome roof that actually has seams and a herringbone terracotta tile finish. And at the very top above that dome is a cupola with a copper finial. The project does meet the height limitations for the zone. The height limit is 45 feet, and that's measured from original grade. And the project is 44 feet, 10 inches from original grade. The existing building itself from original grade is 32 feet. The Design Review Subcommittee reviewed the project on September 9th, 2015, and felt as though the tower extensions were an architectural enhancement to the building design and that they improve the appearance of the neighborhood. The project meets all city standards. The community will benefit with the improved cellular coverage, and with that, staff is recommending approval of the project as proposed. Verizon did request the elimination of conditions number 6 and 7. Those relate to radio frequency. Verizon pointed out that regulation of radio frequency exposure is the exclusive purview of the federal authorities, in particular the Federal Communications Commission, and staff was okay with the elimination of those two conditions, number 6 and 7, and staff is recommending the elimination of those conditions. That concludes staff's presentation. Staff as well as the applicant are available to respond to any questions or comments that you may have.
Mr. Rulon, you have a question, staff?
Yeah, regarding those two conditions, why why were they added in the first place? What was staff's purpose in putting them in?
We've typically had those conditions. They've kind of been there historically, but over time, the FCC as well as the carriers have really stressed that concerns about radio frequency and the regulation of RF exposure is the purview of the Federal Communications Commission, not a local jurisdiction.
And let me ask the city attorney as well. Does this, because I remember seeing things essentially like this in other previous similar applications, so I wanted to make sure we weren't, missing something or, bypassing an opportunity for some appropriate restrictions if we needed to do that in the future. Is there anything like that we should be worried about?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, this is an appropriate request by the applicant, so no cause for concern legally.
Very good, thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions of staff at this time? Is the applicant here and wish to make any comments?
At staff's request, I did bring copies of the coverage maps for you to pass out. I don't know how many, I should give 7 of them. Is that enough, I guess? Good evening. My name is Mari Hager. I'm with Core Development Services representing Verizon Wireless. I am here to answer any questions you have and address any comments about the project. But before I do that, I would like to describe in some detail the proposal before you. And at staff's request, like I mentioned, I do have copies of the coverage maps for you, and also there is a map at the back which shows the existing facilities that Verizon has in the city with the locations of those, just for your reference. So you can see that in relation to the proposed facility. In late 2013, early 2014, Verizon identified the need for a facility in this particular location due to a deficiency in service that they're currently experiencing in this portion of the city. This need for a new facility is determined in 3 primary ways, and that is customer feedback, computer modeling, and drive testing that is done throughout the neighborhoods to determine that there is a deficiency in coverage. The location at the Little Inn was selected to fill in a gap in coverage that cannot be filled by Verizon's closest adjacent sites, which are Christianitos to the south and San Clemente Pier to the north, and those are just what are referred to, those are Verizon's internal site names. And you can see those on your map. And this basically leaves a coverage gap in the area. This facility will serve to significantly improve coverage to the residential areas to the north and south of the 5 freeway, limited commercial areas along South El Camino Real, and to a portion of the 5 freeway. As demonstrated on the coverage maps provided to you, the surrounding sites cannot provide adequate or reliable in-building coverage to residents, businesses, and commuters in the community, which results in slow data speeds, unreliable network access, and frequent connection drops. With regard to the design of the facility, the proposed height at 43 feet, which is measured at the antenna center lines, is necessary to meet coverage needs due to the hilly topography in the area. We are trying to reach not only obviously households to the south towards the ocean, which is obviously going down slope, but upslope as well, which there is a significant increase in topography to hit the houses behind the Little Inn. And also to the freeway, which is above grade and upslope, and there is also a bend or a curve in the freeway as well. So we do need to hit that objective. So there's the topography, but there's also the strategic placement of the site in between adjacent sites within the network, as previously discussed, to fill in the gap in coverage. So you're not just looking at, you know, this individual site and its coverage in this immediate area. You're looking at it with respect to its location and how it's going to work within the network and adjacent sites. Further, the search ring, which is a very small area centered at the 5 freeway and extending from essentially Avenida San Antonio north to Paseo de Cristobal, consists primarily of single-family residences or one-story commercial uses. The Little Inn presents the best opportunity as it is the highest structure, and Verizon has been able to create a design that is consistent with the existing Spanish architecture, and it is fully stealth in design, not readily recognizable as a antenna facility. Verizon has worked diligently with staff over the past year, well, over a year, I'd say year to 2 years, and with the design review subcommittee to design and redesign the project so that it complements the existing building. And Verizon will also be doing a few upgrades to the hotel itself, non-associated with the antenna facility, so that the entire project as a whole is an improvement to the community. In sum, Verizon has designed a facility that will fit in with the context of the neighborhood. It will not interfere with the use of the property or that of neighboring land uses. The facility will comply with all FCC standards related to emissions, exposure for human safety, and also for interference issues. Verizon has demonstrated the need for this facility, has met the findings for approval of the conditional use permit, and the project complies with the city's zoning code. We respectfully request your approval of this permit, and I will be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions?
Yeah, question.
Mr. Eggleston?
Yeah. It's all nice and fine, but you need to explain the different colors on this map.
Okay, so with the colors, what you're looking at is,
Good.
Yeah, I got that.
the first page is just representative of what this site is going to do and providing coverage. The green represents optimal coverage, and that means excellent service both indoor and out. So when you're inside a building, when you're outdoors, and when you're in your vehicle. When it goes to yellow, it is not so good indoors. You're basically going to have problems with drop calls and slow data speed and everything else indoors. What you are going to have is good coverage outdoors and in vehicle. When it gets to red, you are going to have poor service both indoors and in vehicles, and what you're going to only have is minimal coverage just outdoors. So you're going to have a lot of drop calls, block calls, slow data speed, generally very poor service. So what you can see on page 2 is what this site is going to look like with respect to the other sites that it's connecting with along the network in the city of San Clemente. So you can see how they sort of hand off to one another. You got the green with a little bit of yellow in between, but they're basically kind of handing off to one another. And what Alcazar, what's what we call this site at the Little Inn, is filling in the gap in coverage that exists between Cristianitos, Cristianitos, is that what you say? And San Clemente Pier. When you go to page 3, you'll see that currently, there is a lot of red, white just means a dead zone, so red, white, and yellow in between there right now. And then on page 2, you'll see that what's filling in is going to be this site, and now it's going to be filled with a lot of green and yellow, so there won't be that lack of service.
Thank you for bringing this out. I'm the one that requested it for staff in the future. Let's have the applicants provide this in the staff brief so it can be put on the screen so the public can,
Actually, you have it on the screen if you want.
for what we're looking at for the public here, this is the public benefit of what we're talking about. There we go. Perfect. Picture's worth 1,000 words here. Okay. I had another question. I don't know if it got related. Normally Verizon has provided like your own generator power
generator.
system, and I didn't see it anywhere on the drawings, although there's a item number 35 says there's a power takeoff. It says Little Inn have their own generator and you're pulling off of that, or where's your power?
No, we are providing a generator plug in the parking lot so that we can roll a generator out in the event of an emergency. And this is a very rare situation for Verizon. Verizon, I mean, 99.9% of the time, always has a permanent generator on their sites, and that is unlike any of the other carriers. They are just adamant about having permanent generators for emergency situations.
This is the first Verizon site I've approved in 5 years in this town that it has not had on-site.
So that just goes to
power.
show you how bad they want this site, because it has to go through an exception process to just not have that. They really need this facility, and in this case, there just wasn't any ground space to have a permanent generator. As you know from the property, the space is very limited. We couldn't take up a parking space for it. We couldn't put one on the roof. There wasn't sufficient space. It's primarily tile pitched roof. There wasn't a space for it, and we
Probably
can't
couldn't
put it
handle the load.
inside a room. So it just, it is what it is, and it's like 1 in 100. This just happens. If there had been a flat space on the roof that was large enough and that wasn't over, a hotel room, that would, be obviously invasive to the.
So you're going to run a power takeoff and it'll be run down to the back?
Yeah, the power
parking
will be
lot.
connected to the room, so it'll be ready in case of the need for it, and then our generator will be rolled down there. So it would be connected and it would be turned on like that. It's just that we can't have a permanent generator on site.
Okay. Mr. Smith?
It's the best alternative we can have.
Yeah, I do have a question. Can you flip backwards to the slide of the omission of, I believe it's 6 and 7? Yeah. Can you explain why you're asking for this?
Yes, Verizon in the past, I think, and as well as the other carriers in the past few years, have just become, very aware of the federal government and what they can regulate versus what the municipalities can regulate, and they're really wanting to make that separation. So essentially, if the city's going to put in conditions with respect to interference issues or emissions issues, it's not legal, it's not under the city purview, the city can't regulate it, they can't enforce it. So what they're feeling is that these conditions shouldn't be placed in the conditions of approval. They're not enforceable by the city, they are only enforceable by the federal government, so they really have no place in the conditions of approval in any local jurisdiction. This isn't something that we're just saying, here in this instance in San Clemente. Verizon has taken a hard stance and is doing this in every jurisdiction. If it's something that's only enforceable by the federal government, they only want these things enforced by the federal government and addressed by them.
Do those conditions relate to public safety of the waves that are generated from this apparatus?
Yes, those are only enforceable and regulated by the FCC. I mean, we go through a very stringent process of having to get licensed and get permitted with every single site that is built, and that is not something that the city has any authority or regulation over, so they don't want the city involved in that process because they don't have any authority over that process.
There's topography involved here that there will be people who will be in a higher elevation of this that might be in a certain direction of getting the frequencies. Was that in it? Did you look at a section and consider any of that possibility?
Yes, and a site cannot be turned on air without proving to the government that they will be in compliance with FCC standards. An actual report has to be done.
That's true.
Of shooting it up?
Yes, an actual report has to be
So
done.
it's all going to go, it's going to go to lower elevations?
No, it's going to be done in, if you look at the plans.
Quadrants on the drawing, 050, 150,
There's an azimuth of which
220.
directions are going to be.
They have the
Usually it's
directions on the drawing.
0, I don't know, 240, 120, but it should be shooting behind up north, yes.
050, 150, and 220, I think are the quadrants on the drawing.
And you concluded that with people living in a higher elevation, that the frequency of those waves will not be harmful to them?
No, the emissions are regulated by the federal government, and therefore, that'll be considered when the site is built, and that's what also has to be demonstrated to them before the site can be licensed and be turned on air.
Okay, and now I have a question for the city. And I don't know if this is a question for the attorney or for our city experts, but how do we feel about omitting 6 and 7 from the conditions?
Mr. Chair, Planning Commissioners, conditions 6 and 7 have been standard conditions for most jurisdictions over the past few years. What the applicant is stating is accurate, that the FCC is a sole regulatory authority when it comes to emission standards. A planning commission, a city is not permitted to deny an application based on emission standards, right? Condition 6, for example, however, simply states that the facility has to comply with FCC standards. So what Verizon is saying is that because that's duplicative of the FCC regulations, it's not necessary. That's technically accurate, but we cannot, we're not allowed to deny an application based on non-compliance with FCC standards or based on emissions. It's just not within our purview. So I'm comfortable with the elimination of both conditions 6 and 7 pursuant to federal law.
Mr. Eggleston?
In the past, we've had residents who've lived around these types of facilities come to us and express concern. And so I think it's still important to keep in number 6. The carrier, I don't see anything wrong with keeping in number 6 at all. Because I think it's important that we can demonstrate to the residents of this community that, in fact, we have something in the conditions of approval that the carrier shall comply with applicable Federal Communications Commission's FCC requirements. So I'm recommending that, in fact, we keep number 6 in. I don't see anything wrong with that.
We'll wait till discussion then, and we'll
Yeah.
get into that. Because I think we've gone through, where there was a site up at the water tank.
Right.
Where there was neighborhood concerns, and you came in and showed how the site antenna patterns and the decibel loss levels and the process that we go through to actually, what has to be submitted to the FCC, and that was done about a year and a half or two ago, probably before some people came on the commission. So there's a big lengthy process of data that you have to provide to the FCC that says that it all complies with the standard. So there's more testing that's done before it goes operational in that regard. So, okay. And thank you for your illumination on the emergency power.
Yes, thank you.
2 years ago, when we lost 6.5 million customers from Yuma, Arizona, all the way here, you were the only system that worked.
Oh, well, that's good to know.
And so, because nobody else in town puts emergency generators in like Verizon
Yeah,
does. So,
this is not something they like to do, but
it turned out that your system worked when this whole city was blanked out for about a day and a half. So your system came through for us.
that is great to know.
And so that's why this commission always
appreciate it.
asks that question, okay?
Okay. Thank you very much.
Another question I noticed on this location, we approved a site up on the water tank on Santiago. You haven't completed that yet?
Oh, that one, I believe that's called Pico to the east.
Hill way up above us here?
Yes.
At the water
I don't know
tank?
why that wasn't included on the map.
Is that done now? Is that completed?
I don't know, that's not a site that I'm working on, so
Okay,
I don't
we
know
approved it
if
about
it's
a year ago,
completed.
and so I didn't see it
might
on
be
your map.
completed, because they did actually provide me with the location. I have a feeling it is, and that the radio frequency engineers just didn't include that on the map because it wasn't relative to how the coverage fit in respective to this site.
Okay, thank you.
But I know it is just to the east. I saw that on the aerial, so I'm not sure why they didn't.
It's the top of the mountain behind us here. Thank you. Okay, with that, any other questions of the applicant? With that, we'll open the public hearings. Anybody from the public wish to talk to the commission about this installation? If not, we'll close the public hearing and entertain a discussion or a motion.
Yeah, I'm just going to make a comment to number 6, and, the fact that they have to meet federal standards, I'm uncomfortable with the fact to prove the compliance with FCC regulations to the satisfaction of the city planner or his designee. We're not experts in this. We can't take on any responsibility for saying it complies or not, and I'm not comfortable with that particular part of the statement. I prefer if it just says, meet the federal requirements and leave it at that.
I would agree with that. In other words, you would,
Just cut out the last sentence.
just to the satisfaction of the city planner or his designee.
Yeah, cut that
Eliminate
out.
that. I'm comfortable with that, too.
Is that okay?
I was about ready to ask Mal if he'd give us a nod, and he is. Commissioner Smith.
Well, I agree with Commissioner Crandall. I think 6 ought to go in and take out that last sentence, but I don't know why we would want to take 7 out. That just seems like common good sense that you don't want to get within 10 feet of directly in front of this thing. And I guess I would feel better if we left it in. It seems to me it just makes good sense.
Mr. Rulon.
It's working now. The issue, I mean, in terms of leaving in 6 and 7, on one hand, I'm fine with leaving it in. I'm also fine with removing it. I think, there's not a lot of reason to have duplicative text in here. In particular with 7, something like 7, even if we can't enforce it. I mean, I don't think we're even allowed to enforce it. And we've talked in the past about, just in general, about having conditions of approval that are enforceable. And if it's not enforceable, there's not a whole lot of reason to have it in there. So I would be fine with removing 7. 6, I could remove, and I'm certainly in favor of the change that Bart has recommended, just remove that last sentence. In terms of the project as a whole, it's usually with these projects, we've got some great big pole going up, or we've got to do some kind of elaborate camouflage, and we're trying to balance the aesthetics of the city versus the public good of it. Here, we seem to actually be improving the look of the building, which is a nice double plus, instead of trying to make that balance. So I'm pleased with that. They did go through design review, I believe it was twice, actually, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's the case. Originally, it went through as a preliminary review and then came back as a formal application.
So for those reasons, I'm definitely in favor of the project. I will mention one thing that I've mentioned before when carriers come in. This is great for improving the freeway and the center of town, which we do a lot of, but there are still homes in this town that don't have cell coverage from any carrier. It would be nice if these large carriers would kind of do one for them and one for us, one for them, one for us. So hopefully you'll come down and get into some of our canyons and bluffs and cover some of that area that's difficult to cover. So.
I too am going to wrap the comments up and support this project. And Verizon has been, in the last 2 or 3 years, has been very active in filling in your gaps. So we've got Vista Hermosa Sports Park, 2 water tanks. This is the 4th or 5th effort by Verizon in this town. The young lady probably hasn't managed all these projects. So there's your coverage in this town is probably getting quite good, because you're building. I think we have a football field antenna at Vista Hermosa Sports Park now. It fills that valley in. There's one over on Risco, Santiago Peak. So you're
Starting the ones on Estrella.
Yeah. So I think it's. I think you're Verizon very aggressive on this stuff. So I'd be very supportive of this project. With that,
I'll make a motion.
Okay, let's do it. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
one more.
sorry.
Yeah, I guess I have to ask the question of staff. You recommended approval of this based on these conditions, and now conditions 6 and 7 are being modified or taken off the conditions of approval. And I'd like to know why they went on originally and how you feel about them not being on there now, and whether or not you'd still support this.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, these have been standard conditions. Have been really just kind of left over, kind of a carry-on. Over the years, we've been informed by our legal staff that we, as a local jurisdiction, can't regulate RF emissions. It's been said time and time again. So these have been conditions that have been historically used. They're at a point now where I think that we can omit those for the number 6 and 7 for the future. So staff is comfortable with the omission of 6 and 7. And
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I'll chime in. This is an area of law that is incredibly fluid because it is an emergent area of law. There's recent case law from the past year, for example, that deals with 47 U.S.C. Section 332, which interprets these issues, how far a city may regulate. As early as 5 years ago, we had much broader regulatory authority. Now, the recent Clear Wireless case, as well as the Arcadia Towers case, have held that if we regulate on the basis of environmental effects of radio frequency, that could be problematic. Now, it's not perfectly clear yet, but where Verizon is going is essentially where the federal courts have gone. So we're very comfortable with 7 being taken out and with 6 being modified as previously suggested.
Okay, thank you.
Then I will go ahead and make a motion. I'll move we adopt resolution number PC 16-009, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of San Clemente, California, approving conditional use permit 15-108, Verizon at Little Inn, a public hearing to consider a request for the construction of 2 tower extensions with cupolas, which would conceal cellular antennas at the Little Inn Hotel located at 1819 South El Camino Real, with the removal of condition number 7 and the modification of condition number 6, removing the final sentence that reads, "The performance of the facility shall be tested at installation to prove compliance with the FCC regulations to the satisfaction of the city planner or his designee."
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Good work, Verizon. Keep it up. Come back for more. With that, we will move on to item 8D, zoning amendment 15426, Pacific Plan Amendment 16072, short-term lodging units. The staff has no presentation tonight. The item is to be continued to 2 weeks from tonight. He left for the evening. He left for the evening, permanently.
Oh, we did?
Yeah. Did you fill out a recusal form for that?
I couldn't find her anymore in paperless, so I will do so with you.
Okay. So we have no staff briefing. We're going to make no decisions tonight. You can save your comments for 2 weeks from tonight, if you wish. I guess, should we entertain a discussion on the public? How many cards do we have, Madam Secretary? We have...
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So there would be no action by the Planning Commission this evening on this issue. Is that correct? So that
There's no action.
Everyone knows?
So we have 10 or 11 or 12 or 13 cards. Okay. Clip. Okay, with that, we'll go on to item 8D. Mr. Atamian.
Thank you, Chair Brown. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Adam Atamian. I'm the case planner for zoning amendment 15426 and specific plan amendment 16072, the short-term lodging units project. Staff has presented this at multiple public hearings while we have been formulating an ordinance to regulate the zoning aspects of short-term lodging units. Due to some recent work that we have been doing with the potential ordinance and how it is going to affect the ordinance that was approved by the City Council on February 2nd related to the Title III section of the municipal code. We're requesting some additional time to put that ordinance together to make sure that those two titles of the municipal code are seamlessly integrated. And so at this time, we are asking that the Planning Commission continue this item to the April 6th Planning Commission meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much. With that, we'll have no other questions of staff, I guess. We'll open the public hearing. And we have about 10 or so cards, probably generally reserve 30 minutes for public comment, so everybody has 3 minutes, and I'll call them in order, and probably call 2 or 3 names in a row. If you could, the second and third names come along the wall here, we can probably be very effective in doing this. So the first card for item 8D denied zoning for short-term lodging units is Jeff Bosson, Orange County Vacation Rental Association. Right. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Thank you. And thank you for hearing public comment, even though you're not talking about it tonight. Just wanted to get a couple comments in about the 90-day maximum that staff is possibly recommending. Not sure if that is something that you're going to recommend, but wanted to address that. So wanted to start with a quote from Mayor Baker from the February 2nd City Council meeting, where he spoke about that 90-day max that they were considering at the time, that the rules that they did approve that night give the city staff enforceable rules. They'll allow the city staff to close down any rental that's not playing by the rules. He also said if a rental is a good actor, why do we care about them? They're a good actor. He also said the other rules, speaking about this 90-day limit and any other onerous rules, will weed out the good actors, and he is not prepared to do that. So a good acting, and that's the end of his quote, but a good acting STLU is only a benefit to the city. If they're not hurting their neighbors, the neighbors are okay with it, they're a benefit to the city. So to me, the solution is simple. To get rid of the 90-day maximum recommendation, because it only eliminates the good acting vacation rentals unnecessarily. The bad actors are going to be eliminated by the rules that they already put in force. And I think that's what the mayor was speaking to, that the bad actors are going to be bad actors, and the rules they put in place are going to eliminate them automatically. They're going to get code enforcement violations. But why are we hurting the good actors with these unnecessary maximums? That's all I had. I appreciate it.
Thank you. The next up to speak will be Diana Rudolph, followed by Harry Snyder. Okay, you want to defer till April's? Okay.
Okay.
And Harry Snyder?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Planning Commission. I know you've probably received a few letters from me, so I'm going to make this very brief, 2.5 minutes. I'm here tonight to share what both my neighbors and I believe is a possible oversight regarding zoning for STLUs in North Beach. I'm here to specifically talk about North Beach, which we all love. My understanding is that at this stage of the debate, the city is going to restrict vacation rentals to zones, and that only mixed-use properties in North Beach are in the approved zones. I also understand that there is a proposed exclusion that will allow you to have vacation rental in any area of San Clemente if if an owner resides on the property, referred to commonly as home sharing. This home sharing proposition is extremely restrictive. I don't know if any of you are really that familiar with how that program works, but you're basically staying in someone's home The owner is there. Talk about awkward. You're watching TV with your kids in a room that you rented with the owners buzzing around. I mean, who's going to do that? There's a reason why of the 435 active VRBOs, less than 12 are home sharing. So by allowing all this home sharing, yeah, maybe you'll satiate the Coastal Commission, but the reality is we're not going to get any families that are going to participate in that. It's really ludicrous. It's just young kids that come down, rent a room because they don't want to spend the money on a hotel. I just want to make sure we're all clear on what home sharing really is. So let me get to the two main points that I'm here to talk about. So my fellow STLU neighbors, I have a duplex right across the street, basically from the casino. Our properties are located on Calle Las Bolas, right across from the casino and the Ole Hansen Beach Club, which, as we all know, we spent a ton of money to renovate. And quite frankly, I don't know if we've discussed this aspect of it, but they're inside the cultural heritage overlay, and therefore should be considered to be allowed for vacation rentals, in our opinion. There are only a few areas in the city that are designated for heritage cultural overlays. And so we're thinking that even though we're R2s, when you have meters in front of your home and when you're across from commercial properties, isn't that really almost mixed use? So my point is that the current way that we're being zoned is going to exclude us. We are not eligible for STLUs, even though the reality is you couldn't be more eligible in terms of where we're located. We host people for weddings, not the weddings themselves, but the families, the casino. I mean, we're right across from a 7-Eleven. We're looking on El Camino. Is that not mixed use? So I'm just very concerned that the sweeping R2, if you're in an R2, nope, can't do STLUs, I just think it's extremely restrictive. It's not taking into account specific locations. The gateway to San Clemente is North Beach, and I'm just asking, putting myself for the mercy on the court, if you will, for you guys to just consider this historic overlay and the area that we're in. There's three of us. There's three on Calle Las Bolas. There's three duplexes. We're all right next door to one another. We're all doing STLUs, and I'm just saying it's great to be able to host large groups. So thank you for your time. Sorry I went a couple seconds over.
Thank you. Jack Raymer, followed by Angela Simon.
My name is Jack Romer, resident of San Clemente. I live in North Beach next to Harry. The thing that I know that gets everybody fired up and I think got this going in the direction that it has, and with any city and now in San Clemente, it starts with the noise. What Harry is trying to describe there, what I would say, and when you're looking at this, is if you look at the particular street where we're located, the loudest thing in our neighborhood is going to be the Ole Hansen Beach Club. Hands down. It was 3 years ago when it was open. There's a DJ playing in there. There's 100 to 100 plus people outdoors, windows open. It is loud. Nobody complains about it. We live there. We knew it was there when we bought it. Everybody's good with it. That's what happens. But now I feel like we got our permit a couple of months ago. Gave my tenant notice. It takes time. We've been, fixing the place up, bought furniture, tens of thousands of dollars I put into this place, and now it's like, you're not going to be able to do it, when I was given a permit to do it, and it got me going in that direction. I've had the place rented for, on and off for 15 years, so to long-term tenants. In my particular neighborhood, it's, the noise, the big noise is going to be coming from the Ole Hansen Beach Club. So it's going to drown out. I mean, I almost feel like I should tell the people staying at my place and warn them that there's going to be noise from the beach club. It's going to be what disturbs them. It's not the other way around. These guys have been doing this for years. I've never had complaints with them, no noise. I mean, I decided to do this based on that I saw how their places were being operated, and that it's not a big party. I mean, there's a bunch of old people out on the deck the other day, and everybody's cool, and it was fun, So that's where we're at with it. But on our particular street, I guess if I was asked, when you're looking at this stuff on that particular street where we're at, the noise is going to be coming from the beach club. And I know it shuts off at 10, but you got to remember they're loading stuff out of there for another hour. There's trucks banging around. It's loud, and it's acceptable. It's what we know it is, but I don't want to be shushed when the city building is going to be the one making all the noise. Thank you.
Thank you. Angela Simmons, followed by Sean Bryant.
Good
After
evening.
that, Jennifer Massey.
Thank you for allowing us to make our comments this evening. My name is Angela Simmons, and I live in the, or I own rather, in the Villa Granada Homeowners Association. We're on the corner of Del Mar and Granada. We have 62 units with approximately only 20 full-time residents, and we have 7 short-term rentals. When I bought in that building, I checked our documents because my intent was to have short-term rentals. And our documents specifically say that short-term rentals are allowed. And everyone who bought in that community was aware of that same rule. We have a volunteer panel in place in our association that monitors our short-term rentals. We have 0 nuisance calls in our property. We have assigned parking. We have 22 guest spots as well. And we understand the need for rules. We want to be good neighbors. I want my neighbors to, be happy with us. We've had 0 issues with this, but maybe the focus or part of the focus should be about homes that don't have rules already in place or that aren't governed by documents already in place. And I believe not having the ability to rent my property short-term really changes my property value without fair compensation. That's it.
Thank you. Sean Bryant?
Hi, good evening. My name is Sharon Bryant, and I represent both myself as a homeowner. I do a short-term furnished rental in my own home, and I also represent Whitewater Realty. We've been doing business in San Clemente for over 40 years. We've been doing vacation rentals in San Clemente for over 40 years. I have with me Representative Lori Bittner, who also, we have been doing business with a lot of vacation renters for decades. The same people come every year with their families. They rent by the week. They enjoy all the restaurants, the shops, the beach. They are far, far away from anything that even comes close to the sober living homes that are going on in San Clemente that may be mixed in with the short-term furnished rentals. That is a big concern of mine. I also have a lot of clients that have spent numerous amount of dollars, a lot of money, upgrading the unit, furnishing the unit, making it really nice, turnkey, beautiful, rehabbing it, and there's a high demand for that. So there's a lot of invested money in these vacation rentals with numerous homeowners. I really didn't have enough time to contact all the owners. This thing has really happened fast, very quickly, with not very much time to communicate with the homeowners that are being affected, with the vacation renters that have been coming here, tourists that have been coming here for decades, that have been renting the same property by the week. There's even retired people that have their homes that in order for them to be able to still stay there, they move out in the summer and they reap the income for the summer and then they move back into their home. So there is a tremendous amount of business that will be lost, of dollars that will be lost, hardships that will be happening, and money that has been, a lot of money that has been spent on these vacation rentals only to have to unfurnish it and rent it long-term. So that was enough out of me, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Massey, followed by Gary Guile.
Thank you very much for allowing us to take up your precious time when it's not really going to count. But we appreciate your thinking about this over the next couple of weeks. And I have recently heard complaints from several residents regarding annoying long-term renters that they have living near them. And to solve the complaints against the short-term renters, I would hope you would recommend equal treatment and handling of both issues. In other words, treat the short-term renters the way you would treat the long-term renters. And I just have to add one last thing. This is, I said, will be very nice and short for you. I lived for several years. I've lived in San Clemente in the same house for 35 years. And we had a neighbor lived right behind us that had a noise that went on very, very loudly all day long for years. And I called and complained a number of times, and occasionally the authorities would go out and speak to these people. Nothing ever happened until one day, finally, I guess they decided to move. They decided they'd had enough complaints and they were annoying enough people, because I think some of the other neighbors started complaining. And those were owners. So they violated the noise level in our community very unpleasantly. So I hope you will treat everybody equally, that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Gary? Followed by James Payne.
I am a property owner of a duplex in North Beach, and my property resides in the same area as Harry and Jack. And so I'd like to discuss just for a few moments here about the unrestricted use of our duplex for STL use and VRBOs, primarily in the North Beach, what I'd like to consider the casino area of North Beach. So a few years ago, we seriously decided to take into consideration a purchase of a vacation rental, and we did look at the Pier Bowl, and we looked at the downtown area. But what we did notice is that the North Beach area was prime really for tourism, for people to come and utilize that area of the community for weekend events and for weekly events. The casino itself is a very good draw for people for the weddings and other events, but a lot of those people like to find places where they can stay in, walk from a lodging area directly into the casino. So it's very appropriate for that type of use. In addition, with all the restaurants and with all the cafes and coffee shops, and the 7-Eleven, as Harry mentioned as well, there's a lot of commercial type of area in that vicinity of our properties that I believe truly should be allowed for unrestricted use for vacation rentals. In our area on that street specifically, it is multi-tenant. It's not really set up for single-family home type of environment. And I believe that the Planning Commission should look into some of those reasons for allowing us to have unrestricted use for vacation rentals in what I like to consider the North Beach Casino area. Thanks.
Thank you. James Payne will be followed by Cindy Murray.
Given that staff has requested additional time to prepare their report, I'm going to reserve most of my comments for the next meeting. What I do notice, though, is that when I read the preamble on the City Council agenda and on the Planning Commission agenda, what is stated is essentially all of the negative ramifications of short-term vacation rentals. And what I think it would be helpful if staff could actually look at what are the positive aspects also that brought to the city by short-term vacation rentals. And there are many, many positive impacts. Our unit alone, we paid nearly $9,000 in TAT taxes in 2015. And I can tell you that the people we rent to are very high-end vacationers, and these folks go downtown and spend lots of money in the shops and in the restaurants. And I haven't seen any study whatsoever of the impact to the downtown business district if we eliminate short-term vacation rentals here in San Clemente. And we all know that there are no high-end hotels in town for people to go to. You're going to lose the tourists then that have discretionary money to spend on their vacations to Dana Point, Laguna Beach, Newport Beach, and the like, and you're going to leave San Clemente high and dry in terms of all of that revenue that would flow to the downtown business district. So what I essentially would request of staff, if the council would so direct, or the commission would so direct, is that they also look at the positive impacts to the city flowing from the allowance of well-regulated, well-maintained, and properly supervised short-term vacation rentals. And I think you'll find that 95% of those units in this town are well-run, well-managed, and there are no problems. So I look forward to the next meeting when we have staff recommendations for further comment.
Thank you very much. Cindy Murray will be followed after that by Susan Corman. Cindy Murray wrote on a card that I am a short-term guest here and we are coming here on a vacation. Please do not restrict my ability to stay in this lovely town. I guess maybe she left and just wrote her comments, which is fine. Susan Corman. Susan also wrote on the card, I am against restrictions on short-term rentals involving a 90-day maximum and 5-day minimum stay. Brad Dendalk, followed by Lynn Hopper. Okay. Go ahead.
Gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I wanted to talk a little bit about short-term rentals as, well, first of all, I think short-term rentals, they're a valuable part of the community for not just people traveling, but also for the residents of the city. And way more than half of the vacation rentals that are here are owned by San Clemente residents who said, you know what, we want to reinvest in San Clemente, we believe in San Clemente, we're neighbors of San Clemente, and so I think that's important to note. But I wanted to talk specifically about the high-density and mid-density areas, and I think that, you know, a lot of the conversations and I think 100% of the notes, speakers, everything that have come up have all been, have had complaints about a few properties in the R1 areas. But, and I think that a lot of the conversation has been, well, you know, how do we, what do we do about this problem without actually looking and saying, you know, what zones are, you know, potentially appropriate for vacation rentals, and how do they affect, you know, the types of housing, are they different? And I would say that high and mid-density are very different than R1 areas. Lots of activity, they're congested already. If you look at parking and cars, most of the people who are renting or live in a high-density area, they have most of their stuff in the garage. So if you go and try and park on any of the high-density areas at night, it's almost impossible. And you would think, well, wait a minute, don't they have enough parking? If they had enough parking, then they could just go into their garages, they can just go into their driveways. But the reality is that they don't, because they're not, you know, a lot of their stuff is in the garage. The vacation rental, it's not that way. And in fact, if you have like a 2-3 bedroom home, like a long-term rental, you're going to have maybe 2-3 roommates. They're going to have 2-3 cars. Whereas with a vacation rental, with the way people travel, if it's even up to like a 2 or 3 bedroom, you're going to have either just 1 or 2 cars because people consolidate their travel. They're going to have a family, or it's a couple, or whatever it is. So I want you to kind of consider looking at these as different, because otherwise I think it's really kind of like the kids in the sandbox. You have like 10 kids in the sandbox, and the 2 that are, you know, not playing correctly, and then the teacher says, hey, you know what, everybody out of the sandbox, because, you know, these guys are not playing nice. But the other 8, they have been playing nice. They've been playing by the rules, and I think that really treating the R2 and the high-density mid area, the same that you would in R1 area, is really a misdiagnosis of the problem. So I want to thank you for that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Lynn Hopper? Okay. Lynn Hopper wrote, for the record, I do not wish to speak, but want to voice my concerns on the new regulations being placed on short-term rentals. Please, something on the 90-day maximum and the 5-day minimum. The grandfathering should be, abolished for established or allowed for a reasonable amount of time, if not indefinite, so that present owners can follow through on their commitments on the permit the city issued. Money has been invested, time and legal contracts signed. To stop the allowance does not seem just. Grandfathering is a must. Short-term rentals up to 29 days are similar to long-term at 30 days. They were permitted under non-conforming uses, and now it seems you are just changing the zoning code to fit your use. It seems illegal to change in the process, for the record. Now for Tricia Madding, followed by Shuhil and Diane Howitt.
Good evening. On December 8th, the Santa Barbara City Council directed city staff to forgo further research on home shares. In so voting, the council followed the recommendation of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission, following several months of research, based its recommendation on two factors: the inability to enforce regulations and the costs involved in trying. The city mayor stated that the city had recently voted to prohibit vacation rentals, and that because of the stated enforcement difficulties, he believed allowing home shares was a slippery slope he didn't think Santa Barbara should take on. At last night's city council meeting, there was discussion regarding the fact that sober living homes are continuing to open in San Clemente by calling themselves mental health homes, and that really there's nothing San Clemente can do about it. They are the same creature under different names. Because of the inability to enforce regulations, home shares and vacation rentals are also the same creature that I don't think San Clemente wants to take on. There appears to be concern regarding the Coastal Commission. The Coastal Commission has stated its goal is to provide affordable housing accommodations for people who would not otherwise be able to stay at the beach. Short-term lodging units and home shares in Southwest San Clemente are anything but affordable, and therefore allowing them will do nothing to help the Coastal Commission accomplish its goal. The people who are being told they can no longer rent short-term are not being denied the right to rent. They're only being told they can only rent to a single party in a 30-day period. It's just the amount of money they can make, not the fact they can't make money. Finally, as you're aware, the state of California requires cities to allow detached single-family homes to have second dwelling units unless the city can state a reason why they cannot be permitted, and the reason is not fixable. San Clemente expressly prohibits second dwelling units in single-family homes west of the 5 freeway because of the lack of infrastructure. There is no difference between home shares and second dwelling units when you look at infrastructure. Home shares require more infrastructure than second dwelling units, which are already prohibited. Thank you.
Thank you. Suhail and Diane Howitt. I do not wish to speak, but I am present to urge the Planning Commission to eliminate the 90-day maximum per year recommendation on the short-term rental lodging units. In addition, any grandfathering clause should be, I can't understand the writing, should be eliminated, I guess, or am I quite? Grandfathering should be indefinite. Okay. Handwriting expert. And finally, Valerie Von de Silver.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Valerie Van de Silver. I'm the proud manager of several vacation rentals in San Clemente and in other cities in Orange County. I started saying the United States. Other cities in Orange County, so I've had a lot of experience, and many of you are familiar with some things that are happening in other cities. So let me just say a few things that I've learned over the last years as I've watched this evolve in other municipalities as well as this one. First of all, I encourage you to be wise in the area of enforcement. In one of the other municipalities where I operate, we asked the code enforcement officer, what are you going to do? How are you going to enforce these things that you're recommending? And her comment was, I have no idea, and I don't want to take on anything that I can't enforce. And her comment went on to say, as a matter of fact, I called the city of Santa Monica and asked how are they going to enforce their recent regulations, And the person there said, I have absolutely no idea how we're going to do that. So I ask you please to keep in mind that rules sound good, but if you can't enforce them and people are just going to go around you anyway, you don't accomplishing anything by making rules that can't be enforced. The comment I've heard often is that, well, people will come anyway and they'll stay in hotels. I suggest to you that they won't. Many of our guests are people who are parents of children who live in Talega, and they're the grandparents. Hotels are not set up to do the same thing that short-term rental occupants are. Short-term rentals are for families who come, grandparents who come and stay and visit their children, and going to hotels is not the same thing. It's not the same person. What will happen to these homes if you decide to just close them all down? They can become long-term rentals. They can become short-term halfway houses, and you have absolutely no control at all. One of the things that we consider in other areas is that when you have a short-term rental property under your jurisdiction, you have the right to control the occupants. You can't do that if you have a short-term, or if you have a halfway house, or if you have a long-term rental, or if you have a permanent residency. You can say we can only allow 2 people per bedroom or 3 people per bedroom if it's a short-term rental. You can't otherwise. So I encourage you, I see my lights going on, I encourage you to be a leader. Don't collapse to old-time thinking, but be a leader. What if there wasn't a leader who started Uber? What if no one started Amazon? This is a situation that takes place in other cities. Why doesn't San Clemente become a leader and come up with something that works for everyone and that allows you to have a program that's enforceable and does well for the city as well as for the guests who come to your city?
Thank you. I have no more cards. Does anybody else wish to speak and fill out a card at this time?
I was going to give you a 2-week break, but since I've heard the other side for a while now, I thought I'd give you the side of a resident that lives in a neighborhood that has a short-term rental. And I don't wish to offend anybody that spoke, but we are being restrictive. We're restricting our neighborhoods to families and long-term residents because that's what a neighborhood is. It's a community of people that live and hang out together, do barbecues, kids play with kids. It's not a transient site where people come in on a weekly basis to party or vacation. It's a neighborhood, and we're kind of overlooking that. I keep on hearing the revenue, money, and I understand if I had one of these properties, I would be concerned too. But the bottom line is, if you live in the community, you spend money in the community. I'm at my house 365 days a year when I'm not on vacation. I visit all the local shops, all the local restaurants. Property next to me that rents out quite often. It's probably not a good example, but most of these vacation rental properties, I would assume, rent out a decent amount of the time, but they're empty some of the times. When they're empty, are our restaurants being used? The revenue side of this tourism thing is, I think it's a farce. Residents spend money at veterinarians, automotive places, doctors, dentists. Our tourists don't do that. And I think that's a point that needs to be made. If properties are being rented out on a short-term basis, not 365 days a year, God forbid, they aren't using the community and frequenting the businesses of the community like a long-term renter, long-term resident is doing. Another thing as far as regulations and oversight and enforcement, if you're there long-term, there's a pattern of consistency that a person will develop, whether they're breaking noise ordinance, parking their cars on the lawn, whatever, that can be enforced. Short-term renters are in, they're out. You get them once and they're gone, and the whole thing starts over again. And that's the problem with short-term rentals. They can be loud one night, they're quiet the next few, the next group comes in, they're loud that night. There's no repeat offender here. Everybody gets a clean slate, and that's why regulations don't work in these properties. They don't belong in residence. They're businesses that are operating in our residential neighborhoods. You've got to consider that when you're looking at this issue. And I think you've done a good job of that. Home shares, there's on-site supervision. Someone spoke about a condominium association spoke.
they have on-site supervision. It's a whole different animal than putting a property like these in a residential neighborhood with no on-site supervision. Even the best property management companies can't do what they need to do. They're not on-site. It's a phone call and a wait, and you are affected as a homeowner. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else desire to speak on this tonight? With that, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion to continue.
Well, with the chair's indulgence, I'd actually like to speak for just a moment to the gentleman from North Beach, because they've been giving us some input. No, no, you're right, let's do it at our next meeting. That's the appropriate thing to do, so.
With that, I'd like to have a motion to continue.
I'll make a motion that we continue item 8D, zoning amendment 15426, specific plan amendment 16072, short-term lodging units, to the regular planning commission meeting on April 6th.
Have a motion?
Second.
A second by Eggleston. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 6-0. And with that, we'll go on to the rest of the agenda, if I can find it, which is, there is no new business, old business, reports of commissions and staff. Anything before Coastal Advisory Committee? Yeah.
Yes, Chair Brown, Coastal Advisory Committee met on March 10th. We discussed the San Clemente Pier history, repair, and restoration. We had a presentation by our senior civil engineer, Amir Alkampur, on the historical and future maintenance and repair of our pier. Interesting points that came out of the discussion in the presentation. The pier was built in 1928 by Ole Hansen, and at that time it was only 1,200 feet long, which I thought, wow, it's a lot longer now, but it was only 24 feet wide, pretty small. The pier is assessed every 5 years, so every 5 years the engineers go down and inspect the pier, divers go down and look at the piles and make sure everything is functioning properly. And we discussed some of the damage that's occurred through the various storms in the 30s and in the 80s, and as well as the $2.5 million that was spent on improvements in 2010. That included about 26 wooden piles and 8 concrete piles and 1,200 square feet of wooden planks, as well as rubberized pile wrapping. The Coastal Commission requires that each pile be wrapped in a rubberized material so that the piles don't degrade as fast as they normally would. The average cost to maintain that pier over 16 years is $425,000. I thought that was a staggering number. That's what the city spends every year. Last 16 anyway, on average.
Did you say cleaning or?
Both, maintenance. So that $425,000 would include cleaning, maintaining, and repairing, upgrading where necessary. Great presentation. The next assessment will be, they're in the process of putting that together now, so we're about at year 5 since the last time the pier was updated. We also discussed the sand replenishment project, and recently the City Council approved staff and Coastal Advisory Committee recommendation for money to be made available for the addition of opportunistic sand, approximately 3,400 feet from Linda Lane to T Street, about 50 feet wide. So it's going to be a lot of sand. Should last approximately 5-6 years is what they're anticipating at this point.
250,000 cubic yards, yeah.
One good storm.
Yeah, yeah. It's an effort. Anticipated completion late 2018, and as I said, should last about 6 years. The bacterial monitoring report came through again. Usual offenders, Poche Beach and Pier, the high spikes, the rest about the same. So not much change from last report. And the next meeting we will be dark. The committee will be dark in April. Meeting again on May 12th at 7 p.m. at the Ole Hansen Fireside Room located at the San Clemente Community Center.
Okay. Can you give us 30 seconds on the traffic task force?
You want me to do it, or?
I can do it.
Why don't you do it, because I'm doing the
Is
other
that our
one.
objective, 30 seconds? Because I can whittle these down a little bit. Well, good to know.
No, not really. No, we met Monday night on traffic task. We had an update on the I-5. As you can see, there's going to be some closures on Pico coming up there as they do the embankment. We had a good update on some of the Safe Route to School grants we've been getting on Short Cliffs, Concordia, schools, and some of the sidewalks and areas there. We've been quite successful on those grants, and of course, one more permit to go, and then they'll start working on the El Camino Real to the west end of the town out there for Camino Capistrano. And that's it. That?
I have a real quick thing. We're doing a CEQA workshop. Mel and his team is going to do a presentation on kind of the inner workings of CEQA, and I'd like to invite the Planning Commission. I'll send you out a notice.
Okay.
If more than 4 of you attend, we have to make it a formal meeting, so I need to find out your availability.
Can you give us the date? Or
We're looking at Friday, April 15th.
Okay, we'll look at it, and I'll probably plan on it.
Seek was awesome.
The last one we had, you weren't there, and the young lady came in, was fascinating. She was really good. No pressure with that. Okay.
What do you want to do? Well, if there's nothing else, I will move we adjourn to the adjourned regular Planning Commission meeting to be held at 6 p.m. on April 6, 2016, in Council Chambers at City Hall located at 100 Avenue Presidio, San Clemente, California.
I have a motion by Commissioner Rulon. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Smith. All in favor of adjourning? Aye. Passes 6-0.